federal authorities carried out a pre-dawn raid in North Miami, Florida, targeting a luxury mansion owned by two sitting judges. During the operation, FBI and ICE arrested Judge Amina Hassan of Miami-Dade County and her husband, Judge Ahmed Ali, a South Miami Heights city judge, on charges including large-scale drug trafficking, human trafficking, judicial corruption, and conspiracy. Investigators seized over 1 ton of heroin and fentanyl, hundreds of military-grade firearms, and uncovered an underground complex containing narcotics stockpiles, forged identity labs, and detained children. More than 60 trafficked minors were rescued. Following the raid, Operation Clean Wave led to over 427 arrests across Miami, dismantling a trafficking network linked to Somali gangs operating under judicial protection for 6 years. In a quiet luxury neighborhood of North Miami, behind palm trees, iron gates, and white stone walls, stood a mansion that symbolized power, success, and respect. To neighbors, it was the home of 2 accomplished judges, Judge Amina Hassan of Miami-Dade County and her husband, Judge Ahmed Ali, a city judge in South Miami Heights. Immigrants who had risen through the system, public servants, guardians of the law. But to federal investigators, that mansion was something else entirely. It was a fortress. The first signs appeared years earlier, buried deep in data that few ever examined closely. FBI analysts noticed patterns that didn't make sense. Drug cases tied to the same ethnic networks dismissed repeatedly. Violent offenders walking free without explanation. Traffickers vanishing from court records. Children reported missing, their files quietly going cold. At first, each case looked isolated. A paperwork error, a lack of evidence, a sympathetic ruling. But when analysts mapped the data, a single reality emerged. The same courtroom signatures, the same judges, again and again. The law wasn't failing. It was being used. Investigators soon realized these judges were not shielding criminals out of negligence or bias. They were operating a criminal empire with a level of protection no cartel had ever achieved. From inside the courtroom, they provided immunity. From inside their home, they coordinated logistics, money, weapons, and enforcement. Under their protection, a network connected to Somali gangs expanded rapidly across Miami. These groups weren't small street crews. They had direct access to East African heroin and fentanyl pipelines, feeding America's overdose crisis at an industrial scale. Shipments moved through ports using falsified customs documents. Couriers crossed borders untouched. Arrests meant nothing. Charges disappeared once they reached court. Over time, investigators uncovered a second operation far darker than narcotics. Human trafficking. Undocumented minors, runaway teens, and vulnerable children from ignored neighborhoods were targeted, moved through safe houses, and sold to wealthy buyers across Florida and beyond. Their identities were erased using forged documents produced inside a hidden lab. Once inside the system, the children effectively vanished. To protect it all, the judges hired elite mercenaries, former soldiers from conflict zones across East Africa. These were not bodyguards. They were trained combatants equipped with military-grade weapons, night vision optics, and surveillance technology. They guarded shipments, eliminated threats, and defended the mansion like a war zone. Local surveillance attempts failed repeatedly. Informants went silent. Warrants stalled. Every path investigators tried led back to judicial roadblocks. Until the night Federal Command decided the risk of inaction was greater than the danger of confrontation. Before dawn, FBI tactical teams and ICE Homeland Security units quietly surrounded the mansion. Intelligence confirmed armed mercenaries inside. This would not be a knock-and-announce arrest. It would be a battle. As teams advanced, gunfire erupted. Automatic weapons shattered the silence as mercenaries opened fire from balconies and fortified positions. FBI operators locked shields, returned controlled fire, and deployed flashbangs to clear firing points. The assault intensified as armed guards poured through entrances with coordinated precision. This was not chaos. It was organized defense. Inside, smoke-filled marble corridors as agents breached rooms one by one. Thermal cameras tracked movement. Firefights erupted at stairwells and hallways. Outside, ICE units blocked escape routes toward nearby docks, cutting off fleeing guards using armored vehicles. After nearly 10 minutes of sustained combat, the gunfire stopped. The fortress fell. Several mercenaries lay wounded across the manicured lawn, their weapons scattered beside them. Others were face down in the grass, wrists bound behind their backs, breathing heavily as federal agents stood watch. A few did not move at all. The silence that followed the firefight was unsettling, broken only by distant sirens and the hum of generators powering tactical lights. Several mercenaries lay wounded across the manicured lawn, their weapons scattered beside them. Others were face down in the grass, wrists bound behind their backs, breathing heavily as federal agents stood watch. A few did not move at all. The silence that followed the firefight was unsettling, broken only by distant sirens and the hum of generators powering tactical lights. Against all expectations, no federal agent had been killed. Commanders later called it extraordinary, not luck, but discipline, planning, and restraint in the face of overwhelming firepower. But the operation was far from over. As medics treated the injured and perimeter teams secured the property, interior units began a secondary sweep. This was no longer about neutralizing threats. It was about uncovering truth. What they found next would redefine the entire mission. Behind an ornate decorative wall inside the eastern wing, an agent noticed something wrong. The paneling was too new, too clean. When tapped, it echoed hollow. A pry tool exposed a hidden seam. With a controlled pull, the wall shifted inward, revealing a reinforced steel door concealed behind luxury decor. Beyond it, a narrow staircase descended underground. The air changed immediately, cooler, heavier. The smell of chemicals mixed with damp concrete. Agents moved carefully, weapons raised, lights cutting through the darkness. What lay beneath the mansion was not a basement. It was a fully constructed underground complex. Reinforced walls, soundproof insulation, industrial lighting. Something designed to remain hidden forever. The first chamber opened into what looked like a warehouse. Brick after brick of narcotics stacked with military precision. Heroin, fentanyl, methamphetamine, each wrapped, labeled, logged. This was not street-level distribution. This was supply chain scale. Unexplained fatalities to larger criminal patterns. Community reporting channels were strengthened, ensuring that whistleblowers could report irregularities safely and that their concerns would be acted upon. Evan Marshall, whose observations had set the investigation in motion, was posthumously recognized. Though his life was tragically cut short, his courage had exposed a criminal empire that had operated in plain sight for nearly a decade, and his name became synonymous with vigilance, integrity, and sacrifice. In Dallas, Operation Night Veil became a hallmark of interagency coordination and precision in modern law enforcement. Delta Force operators, FBI hostage rescue teams, ICE investigators, and local tactical units coordinated in real time, executing a meticulously planned operation that rescued hostages, neutralized armed threats, and dismantled the central operations of the trafficking network. 15 hostages, including 6 children, were recovered from captivity, many of whom had been held in conditions designed to break both body and spirit. Evidence recovered during the operation, ranging from issued ledgers to passports and encrypted hard drives, mapped a sprawling multinational criminal enterprise. The documentation and digital records linked operations from Texas to Myanmar, Panama, Cyprus, and multiple points across the Western Hemisphere. The raid sent a powerful, unmistakable message. No badge, no title, no flag, and no position grants permanent immunity from the law. The collapse of the network forced agencies to confront their own shortcomings, rebuild trust with affected communities, and implement proactive measures to prevent similar exploitation in the future. The human toll of the network was stark. Communities had suffered in silence, many unaware of the machinery operating around them. Yet the resilience of institutions willing to act decisively offered a path forward. The operation highlighted the necessity of vigilance, accountability, and courage in safeguarding society from both visible and hidden threats. By sunrise, the streets of the Mississippi Delta and Texas were quiet, lined with armored vehicles, temporary command posts, and exhausted federal agents maintaining a vigilant watch. Arrests, seizures, and rescued hostages represented the tangible outcomes of the operation, but the true success lay in exposing a criminal network that had embedded itself within the very systems designed to protect the public. Operation Night Veil marked a historic turning point in modern law enforcement. demonstrating that justice requires unity, precision, and an unwavering commitment to ethical principles. The raids underscored a harsh truth: corruption grows in silence, and vigilance is the only reliable defense against its spread. The gravest threats are not always external. They can emerge from within institutions, concealed behind badges, titles, or diplomatic privileges. However, accountability, courage, and decisive action have the power to dismantle even the most deeply entrenched networks. For the communities affected, the operation restored hope. For law enforcement, it provided a blueprint for future integrity-driven operations. For the nation, it reaffirmed a fundamental principle: the law is blind to rank, title, or flag, and the protection of life, liberty, and justice remains the ultimate mission. In the weeks following the operation, law enforcement agencies across the country implemented lessons learned from Operation Night Vale. Training programs emphasized the importance of recognizing systemic patterns, connecting previously isolated reports, and acting decisively when red flags appeared. Multi-agency task forces were formed to monitor high-risk trafficking corridors, and intergovernmental cooperation was strengthened at both national and international levels. Public outreach campaigns informed communities of warning signs and encouraged the reporting of suspicious activity, reinforcing the message that citizen involvement is crucial in the fight against organized crime. The social impact of the operation was profound. Families who had lost loved ones found closure as evidence linked previously unexplained disappearances to trafficking routes and illegal operations. Survivors of the operation's rescues received immediate care, including medical treatment, counseling, and legal protection, enabling them to reintegrate into society with dignity. At the same time, awareness campaigns highlighted the dangers posed by synthetic narcotics and human trafficking, ensuring that prevention became a community effort rather than solely a law enforcement responsibility. Operation Night Vale also served as a cautionary tale about the consequences of blind trust. The network had thrived not only because of the cunning of its operatives, but because communities, institutions, and even law enforcement officials had underestimated the potential for corruption to exist within their ranks. The operation forced a cultural reckoning, reinforcing the importance of accountability at every level. From customs inspections to local policing, from medical oversight to intelligence analysis, every actor involved had a responsibility to question anomalies, connect patterns, and act without delay. Ultimately, Operation Night Vale demonstrated that protecting society requires more than law enforcement. It requires integrity, courage, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. It proved that no child, no woman, no man, and no innocent soul is expendable, and that the machinery of justice can, and must, operate even when facing threats hidden behind institutional shields. As investigators continue to track residual elements of the network, the operation remains a blueprint for coordinated, principled action against organized crime, illustrating that vigilance, persistence, and moral courage can dismantle even the most entrenched criminal empires. When the dust settled over Mississippi and Texas, one truth was undeniable: America had acted decisively to protect its citizens. Operation Night Vale restored hope to affected communities, reaffirmed the rule of law, and sent a global message that corruption, no matter how deeply entrenched or shielded, would be confronted, exposed, and dismantled. The operation was not just a law enforcement victory. It was a declaration that justice transcends rank, title, and privilege. The lives rescued, the families reunited, and the systems reformed stood as enduring proof that vigilance, integrity, and courage remain the cornerstone of a free society.